Good. So now we have the next speaker, Kris from Token Engineering Labs. He has a very sad story because he came to him by train and missed the moderation of the panel in the morning. So like he's really, I would say, this expert who's like connecting this engineering mindset, which Michael like had in the morning, but also the economic perspective. So he has seen many things in academia, but also in practice with his company, Token Engineering Labs. Also quite helpful in organization of these events. So I'm very happy that you are here today to share some insights. And yeah, maybe one round of applause, and then we start.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, Mark, and thank you very much for inviting me to the session today. Thank you, Simon, for priming the topic. Market design leads nicely into the topic that I want to discuss with you, which is mechanism design, which is protocol design. And I want to shed some light from my experience from applied research and applied protocol implementation, synthesizing three different lenses. So I want to look at it from the systems design perspective, I want to look at it from the economic perspective, and I want to look at it from the VC perspective on how protocols are being realized. And all of those perspectives have a very strong influence on how protocols are being designed, how protocols are being implemented, how projects are being realized. And those three different perspectives are always at tension because they serve different goals and they serve different purposes. But also they are very important to balance in projects such that we can come to a realization of a project and that comes into fruition. The talk today is not so much structured, so it's more a loose collection of different thoughts and primitives, but hopefully at the end we will arrive at a reasoning that will help us to define this trade-off between those different perspectives and synthesize them into one approach that can be realized. So maybe let's start with, at the beginning here, with what protocols are. In my opinion, protocols are coordination machines. So when you look at the protocol, per definition, it comes from the Greek protos kolema, which means first and glue, which was basically just a first page attached to a script that's told you or told the readers how this script is supposed to be interpreted, right? So it was a set of rules. It was a set of rules that was defining the execution of a particular process. It has transitioned to the Latin word of protocolum, which means the rules attached to the document. In modern systems, we talk about a set of rules governing digital interactions. I mean, obviously not only, but when we meet here at the Web3 Summit, at the DePIN Summit, we talk about a set of rules that is governing digital interactions, and those interactions are to some extent encoded on the base layer of the blockchain, which gives us the substrate for handling data in a trustful manner. And then following the stack up, we have backend and frontend solutions that allow users to interact with those protocols and facilitate some use cases, right? So those rules that we define on all of those three layers, they specify who can act, which actions can be done, and how the system translates those actions into state mutations such that there is a movement in the system, right? So there are state updates and things are happening, right? You can look at it, if you want, from the academic side. There is work from Sarkam and Shorish, the GDS framework that helps you really to encode formally how those state transitions are happening. So there is this dynamical system lens that tells you, okay, this is how you can formalize protocols and how you can reason about designing them. Let's move on to today's topic, which is DePIN, right? Like all of this, what I said, applies to protocols in general. It also applies to protocols that are not necessarily Web3. But in DePIN, what we want to talk about is we want to talk about infrastructure where we also do have physical agents in the loop, right? So like we have robots, machines, and other devices that participate either as agents, so they are contributing with actions, they are contributing with measurements, or for example, as sensors, so they are measuring data, they are validating states of data, or as aggregators, which can be transforming many inputs into coherent outputs. To some extent, this also reflects a little bit the market logic. So like we can encode a digital market that would allow us to aggregate information into some output that we want to use in the system further down the road. We can therefore make it another interpretation. So first we talked about protocols as a coordination machine. Now let's talk about protocols as an aggregation machine, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to use the property of protocols to collect information in a trustful manner and then make assumptions or make conclusions about how this information can be synthesized or aggregated into one coherent output that is useful or can be used in the system further down the road, right? So what is happening is that the interaction between agents using the protocol and tokens is information aggregation. And this information aggregation reveals private preferences of agents. It updates beliefs of system participants or the system itself. And from those interactions, we can derive metrics about system states that tell us something, right? And one of these most prominent metrics in this context is, for example, price, right? So like we look at an AMM, we look at a bonding curve, we look at a prediction market, and we say, okay, by letting users interact with our system, we now see that there is some aggregated information that tells us something. So like it informs us about something that we didn't know before, simply by the rules of the protocol aggregating this information into one output that we can derive something from. And this allows users again to interact with the system in the next round, right? So for example, in the prediction market, what you could do is you could say, how are the aggregated beliefs of the market about a particular event? And then again, users can interact with the market to say, I want to update this market because I have a different belief and I want to make profit on the understanding that can be gained from observation. Which role do tokens play? Tokens encode rights in those systems, right? So like first of all, we talk only about protocols because protocols in themselves are already very useful in coordinating interactions. But now we can attach an additional layer on top of those protocols and we can build a right management structure. So like we can say those are tokens that are representing either rights or some values in the system, which means that we can let now users use particular mechanisms, or we can give them some ownership to assets, or we can just allow them to have skin in the game such that they can really truthfully and credibly represent their beliefs. So by interacting, they just say, okay, I'm doing this because I truly believe that what I'm doing will benefit me because I have something at stake. And in this interpretation, we can talk about tokens as information carriers, right? So like depending on which functionality we attach to a particular token and depending on which rules we have encoded in the protocol, now we see that those tokens themselves carry information through the system by being triggered by a particular mechanism or by being placed by a particular user in a particular spot such that something is supposed to happen, right? So what happens now is we talk now a lot about system design or protocol design from like a very formal perspective. Now let's move more into economics. So all of those structures now define an economic game. So we have an institutionalized structure that with clear rules defined, and agents now can obtain different strategies and interact with this structure in a form such that they will get a particular outcome. They might win, they might get information, they might benefit in some other sense, right? So what we allow agents to do is we allow them to interact with those systems, choose their strategies that they want, and to have the system enforce those rules and enforce those outcomes in those situations. So while
while agents are doing this, they are revealing their preferences. They are revealing their information. So they are saying, I bet, I choose this mechanism, or I bet on this token, or I just stake this amount of tokens because I truly believe something. And I know more than others do, or I know that something positive will happen for me. And in this sense, those signals are being now aggregated into some measurable outcomes that can be, for example, prices, reputation, reliability, or in prediction markets, probabilities. So how do we think about it in a DePIN fashion, right? We really want to design a system where all of those interactions and all of those protocols help us to do something useful, right? And when we think about the projects that have been presenting today and have come here to demonstrate their infrastructure, what they all have in common is that they say, we have this infrastructure, we have those distributed actors, and now we want to define a set of rules such that something useful happens, such that a business case or some value added is being generated, and we as the community, as the DAO, as the society participating in the system, have some form of benefit from observing this game and participating in this game, right? So the question becomes, how can we design those things such that those signals can be translated into meaningful outcomes, right?
Examples for mechanisms in DePIN are resource pricing, reliability scoring, or network value estimation through, for example, token bonding curves, right? So those are all primitives or elements or building blocks in protocols, but also in the bigger DePIN infrastructure that can be leveraging token and protocol mechanisms such that useful information is being revealed to the community or the society participating in the protocol, right? So we have those financial games. There always has to be some stake in the game. We already understand that tokens are rights. Rights have value, and users want to increase their personal value because they are myopic. So they really want to participate because they are, their behavior is incentive compatible for them. They want to benefit out of it. But also we know that through this behavior, through this setup, we will have a system processing infrastructure, and we can have an aggregation of this information into some useful output.
And in this interpretation, we can say that similar to tokens securing consensus mechanisms, we can say that DePIN protocol tokens secure the measurement of reality, because we really can make sure that people who participate do this in a fashion that is good for them, but also good for the system. And we have this intersection and interface between physical objects and the digital infrastructure, so that information is credibly integrated into those digital protocols. And just to wrap up the main conclusion, is what are the key economic design principles? This list is obviously not exhaustive, but incorporating those three perspectives that I mentioned in the beginning, where you really want to have systems engineering, you want to have economics, and you want to have the VC angle on it. You see, robustness is important. So from a systems design perspective, you want to design robust mechanisms that uphold desired properties irrespective of individual strategies, which means that regardless what people do, regardless which actions you allow people to take, there will be some properties that always will be true because you designed the protocol in this fashion. Incentive compatibility, so you want to design rules that are compatible with the incentives of the individuals, such that they will participate, and they will participate in an honest fashion and in a true fashion, such that whatever they do benefits them, but also translates into a macroscopic outcome that is good for everyone, which means that incentives are aligned across multiple scales. And from the scalability perspective, this is what VCs are interested in. this all makes sense if you have, you know, like it's a nice toy model and you can build protocols that serve some people. But what you really want is you want to build something that benefits society and and gets a lot of traction and a lot of users, which means that you need to do this credibly. So you need to be able to scale such a protocol in a fashion such that from, you know, many small signals you can get to an aggregation that is credible and reliable on a big scale. This refers strongly to what Simon said before. You need to have markets that have liquidity, or like you have to have depth in those markets. You have to have interactions. You have to have people who are willingly participating because they believe that their interactions are good for them and will also benefit the bigger protocol. Again, this is not exclusive, but this is something that shows you that protocol design is complex and it integrates different perspectives. It's good to talk to different disciplines and to synthesize them into one approach. And depending whom you talk to and where your project stands, you might lean towards one or the other, but that's another story. Thank you so much.